Okay, good morning everybody. A warm welcome to day 2 of Cleanroom Technology and also ManChem. For the first session today, I think we've got a blend of delegates for both Cleanroom Technology and ManChem. And after the first plenary session, Steve's going to lead all of those who are here for ManChem back out of Cleanroom Technology to another room somewhere. Okay, so that's the way we're doing it for this morning. For me, I'm going to rush the introduction a little just because we've allowed a little bit of time just to try and populate the room a little more. So we started a bit earlier this morning at 8:30, and I think there's still a lot of people getting up and getting their way here. So we've allowed a few more minutes to add to the population. So from me, welcome. I'm Tim Triggs. I get the pleasure of chairing today, introducing a band of great speakers through the course of the day for Cleanroom Technology. That's my background. Whistling through that, I come from a cleanroom design build, pharmaceutical background, and in instrumentation and technology for testing and monitoring cleanrooms. So back in 1989, I started as a young man in this industry, and now I'm aging and greying, and so hopefully with some of that seniority, maturity, whatever you wish to call it, I can blend the day together and bring the conference to a close later this afternoon. My day job now is consulting with Air Techniques International, ATI, and also support our British Standards Committee, BSI LBI 30, for our participation in ISO 14644 and the family of standards. I'll get to talk a little bit about that later, so I won't add to that now. And I also chair the CCN, the Contamination Control Network, and the Cleanroom Testing and Certification Board International. Some of those communities are known by some of you. Hopefully through the course of the day, we'll share a little news on those as well and hopefully gain your participation. On to the topic of the day, appreciation first. Really important to bring an event like this together. It doesn't look like it in the room yet, but we've got 400 registered for this event. So that's 400 of delegates, including exhibitors and also the sponsors. I think that's up something like 10% on last year. We had about 350, 360 registered last year. So still feels popular to have this event, but please have your say. What's working for you, what isn't working for you, please let one of the organising committee know that, because we'd like to keep this going and like to keep improving it. It happens with sponsors, so for Redditch, for Micron Clean, for Wise Technic, Eco2 and OPEC, thank you. Appreciation goes to those for being sponsors of the event. Organisers, for the team that are Hawk, that makes it audible and visual, and that's really important. And the facility hosts and caterers. Hopefully the hospitality is good. Again, if there's any comments, please make those known to us. And lastly to you, the delegates and exhibitors. Really important. I think we've got 72 exhibitors here between ManChem and Cleanroom Technology. That's fantastic. And I talked to a few yesterday. They were enjoying the networking as much as seeing the footfall from visitors. So I really appreciate that attendance. For today, we're here in the Motorcycle Museum. Exits are out. We're on this level for exits. So emergency exits are out through here and back out through the conference room if necessary. Toilets are down one level if you haven't found those already. And refreshments are all over the show. So out in the exhibitor hall, there's tea and coffee and refreshment stations. So enjoy the exhibition, the conference, and the presentations. All presentations, I believe, unless any of us as individuals prohibit that, will be available electronically to everybody that's registered. So if you're here and you're not registered, make sure you do register today. You get access to all the presentations after the event. So that's very useful. And if you can help, some of the event organisers do the social media, but I know some of you enjoy that too. Put it out there on social media, what a great event you're enjoying. So yesterday, day one, Steve hosted day one, and that focus was on standards and regulations. The theme today is more tuned towards cleanroom design and operation. So a few more presentations today. There's been some changes, I think, to what you've got printed. So we're going to start off with a presentation from Connector Cleanrooms, and then Steve with Design Construction. Connor Murray is going to talk about microbiological control, and then we go into a few other presentations. I'll introduce them as the day goes. The important things today is first tea break is at 10:40, and lunch is at 1:10. Those are the only two breaks today. So maybe a change to the agenda you might have printed. We're going to finish at 3:20. Okay, so maybe on your printed program you see James Tucker. We've had a change to the program, so we're going to finish after this presentation from Combustion at 3:20 this afternoon. So you get an early leave. Your last time then to spend with the exhibitors is over the lunchtime period, so two break times. Lastly, plug for Cleanroom Technology. Some of you may wish to travel east. Some of you may work for companies that work in the east or have customers. We hosted this for the first time last year. It was a real success in Singapore in Asia. So Cleanroom Technology Asia, the second event will happen this year on the 5th and 6th of December. So if you can publicize that or share it, we would really love to see you, colleagues, customers, any contacts you have in Asia this December. So without further ado, as a quick introduction, I'm going to introduce Simon Rice and Joan Benson from Connector Cleanrooms. You have the longest introduction title, so I'm going to let you introduce your presentation today and tell the group what you're going to talk about in terms of regulatory compliance and some of the building blocks for Cleanroom. So the floor is yours, both of you.
Thank you very much, Tim.
All right, you're wired up.
Hello. So today we're here to talk about building blocks of cleanroom compliance, and the main focus of this is on building compliance into every stage of the cleanroom cycle. So if I just introduce myself, I'm Joan Benson. I'm the Global Compliance and Quality Assurance Manager for Angstrom Technology. I've had a career that's coming up to 50 years this year, and with a couple of short excursions, most of it's been in pharmaceuticals. 20 years ahead of production, 6 years as a person designate for the HTA, 20 years front-facing regulatory experience. I'm a lead auditor for the pharmaceutical industry, and I've been a GMP consultant as well. And I've worked for the Angstrom Group since May 2020. So I've moved over from working in clean rooms mostly of my life to the last 3 years to designing, installation, and validation of clean rooms.
Hi all, I'm Simon. I'm the Global Compliance Lead at Angstrom Technology. So I spent 8 years previously working in a GMP facility manufacturing radiopharmaceuticals, working on terminal sterilisation. The last 4 years of that was spent as a production supervisor managing the supply of pet pharmaceuticals to the majority of the north of England and Scotland. As part of the 4 years working as a supervisor, I coordinated a large-scale overhaul project of the production clean rooms and equipment, making sure that the full validation qualification process was followed, and had experience sort of generating and executing all the validation protocols as part of that, ready for the MHRA inspection, and generally managed the maintenance and day-to-day sort of operations of the GMP facility. I joined the Angstrom Technology Group in November 2021, and have been working with Joan on any regulated projects that come through the business.
So just a quick word about Angstrom Technology. If anyone's confused, we're marketed as Connector Cleanrooms. About a year ago now, Angstrom Technology acquired both Connector Cleanrooms and Specific Environments. So Connector Cleanrooms also contains our cleanroom shop, and Specific Environments, SEL, was a well-known company in cleanroom construction. We're a global cleanroom company. the UK division of installed clean rooms from Norway to Malaysia by way of Angola, and the American company have installed clean rooms right across the continental USA, down to Mexico, up to Canada. We have staff that work in both areas, so some of our UK staff are in the US, and the US staff regularly visit the UK. We have a global supply chain, and we have experience across multiple industries. And one of the main things is that we offer a full turnkey solution. So everything that you want for your clean room comes across the company, from both divisions of the company. So when is regulatory compliance necessary when we talk about a clean room? Some people seem to think that you just build your clean room and then you apply for your regulatory license. But we believe it's necessary right across the whole life cycle. And the new Annex 1, which comes into operation 3 months today, brought about the contamination control strategy. And we believe that there should be a living document throughout the life cycle of the clean room. So you really need to start thinking about your contamination control strategy at the same time that you're designing your clean room, not just when the clean room's built and it's ready to be handed over.
So this is where we believe that compliance begins, and this is during your pre-project stage of your clean room. So at the point of developing a URS, that's where you need to really start to consider both regulatory requirements and process requirements. So you need to think about what regulatory bodies you have to be working to and what your process is going to require from your clean room. A useful benefit of working with the clean room constructor is that you can actually review your URS with them and ensure that they're able to meet certain requirements, and they'll be able to tell you what they can and cannot do. This may end up meaning that you can involve a third-party contractor or a division of the business. And what you need to look at for URS is everything that you've included. Is it critical? Is it a nice to have, or is it a need to have? Does your clean room constructor have an understanding of GMP? So it's useful for them to have some form of regulatory expertise or have some sort of case studies where they've worked in the industry previously. And this will be a benefit for you going forward because they've obviously shown that they've got historical knowledge of clean rooms in the pharmaceutical industry. So when we look at the actual qualification life cycle, you obviously begin with your URS. You'll then move through to design qualification, through to installation qualification, which should run in parallel with the construction and installation of your clean room. And then you move through to operational and performance qualification of your room to ensure that it's operating as intended. So when we still talk about pre-project compliance, there's a few considerations to have. So you want to begin to design a compliant layout. At this point, you want to consider your flow of personnel, material, your final product, and your waste. As you can see, we've got an image on there sort of showing how the four should interact, and you want to look at where your personnel are going to sort of overlap with your materials, where they're going to move and transfer products from different grades to different areas. You want to understand your pressure cascade. So obviously, you'd be looking at typically a minimum 10 Pascal difference between different grades. However, you may have some health and safety requirements where you'd be looking at a pressure sinks or bubbles. You want to consider your cleaning and disinfectant agents and their interaction with your materials of construction. So at this point, you need to think ahead to when you're actually going to be using your room, making sure that the clean room has been built with the correct materials that are going to work with the agents that you're planning on using. And finally, you want to look at monitoring system requirements. So do you have any critical parameters that your room needs to be operating at? Do you have anything that's temperature or humidity sensitive? And how are you going to be able to monitor that throughout the operation of your room?
So we go on to talk about design compliance. And obviously here we're looking at design qualification, or DQ. So the first thing we consider is the generation of the design drawings, the execution of design qualification or functional design qualification, sometimes both. We need to understand where validation qualification of the URS requirements will occur throughout the qualification life cycle. The use of a protocol tracker will provide an overview of the scope of each qualification stage. We find these really useful with our customers because the customer can see exactly where we're up to if there are any reasons why we can't go to unconditional approval, they can see where we're at conditional and what needs to be performed to get to the unconditional stage. Throughout validation, an independent review of documentation should be conducted. Typically, we will have all validation documentation created by the company and then approved by our customer, and the customer signs everything off, both the protocol and the final completion of the qualification. You should also consider your URS for the requalification requirements of the clean room. So very often the URS will say, this is what we need to do in the additional validation, and we will also suggest that people should put in there what they're going to require for the regulatory requalification of the clean room. So going on to installation qualification, or the verification of the correct installation against the design drawings and the specifications. We use commissioning data to support the qualification process. So this could be things like your HVAC commissioning data. You need, if you've got subcontractors working on different systems within the clean room, you need to ensure that they can produce suitable subcontractor documentation, commissioning data, etc. As part of installation compliance, we go through drawing and documentation review, and we also look at the architectural and functional components of the clean room.
So once we've moved on from installation qualification, we'll then go through to the operational and performance qualification stages of the room. So operational, you're obviously testing the room with all equipment in place, but none of it running, qualifying the room in the at-rest state. When you go through to performance qualification, you'll then test the room with equipment running and the expected number of personnel in the room. And at this point, you're going to test it in operation in its most challenging state. Some thoughts to have while you're going through your qualification stages is making sure that your constructor has an understanding of how GMP and ISO 14644 interact, making sure that the constructor has appropriately trained staff. Ideally, you want someone who's independently trained, so that they've been verified by an independent sort of training company. Your constructor must allow witnessing of testing to ensure that the tests that are being carried out are accurate and true. And an additional benefit is that with technology these days, you can actually have a live review of documents by a QA team. So we regularly use a software system such as Teams, where while the engineers are actually carrying out the validation work, we're able to review the information in real time, and it gives us a real insight into how the qualification is going, even if we're not actually available on site. So what tests need to be carried out while you're executing OQ and PQ? So you need to look at your regulatory requirements, which are generally going to be filter integrity testing, airflow tests, air pressure differences, airflow visualization, normally done through smoke visualization, microbial contamination and recovery testing. But then you also want to consider some process-driven requirements. So you'd be looking at temperature measurements, relative humidity, and containment leak testing. Obviously, these are based on what your product is going to require and if you have these controls and processes in place.
So from the other side of Annex 1, we go now on to requalification of your clean room. This is from clause 4.32, and you need to understand the regulatory requirements for what is required during requalification. I would always say that these are the minimum requirements, and based on your original qualification of your clean room, you might want to add additional tests such as temperature and humidity to these. So again, you're covering your clean room classification by total particle counts, your integrity testing your filters on a 6-monthly basis for grade A and B areas, on a 12-monthly basis for grade C and D. You're doing your airflow measurements, and you're doing verification of your pressure differentials between your rooms. Generally, if any additional requirements are there, you would cover them. If you wanted to remove one of these tests, we would expect a risk assessment in place to determine whether additional testing is required due to your process requirements. And then that's just covering what I just said about the time interval between requalification of different GMP grade areas. So for your servicing and requalification, we'd expect to see a planned preventive maintenance program in place. This is imperative to ensure your facility runs correctly, and you can hopefully time it with a shutdown period for other activity that needs performing in the clean room. So we try and arrange it at the same time as servicing of HVAC, etc. How is a PPM schedule created if you have no previous data? So we say you develop it according to how you use your room and the impact of the outside environment. It can be a bit difficult when you're first starting up a brand new clean room to collect this kind of data. So we'd also talk about trend analysis, trending the data in your room and being able to look what is actually required. Depending on the environment that your clean room's in, I've worked in clean rooms that have been in a very clean environment, that have already got a background, AC, filtered conditions. I've also worked in a clean room that was a porter cabin on a main road in Manchester, and we found that we had to change the pre-filters every 3 months. So a lot of it is dependent on the environmental conditions of your clean room.
So once your room is qualified, does it stay compliant? No, it doesn't. If a room's not used in the correct way, using best practices and following procedures, you cannot guarantee compliance throughout. So when you go to actually look at how you're going to use your room, you need to make sure that you have adequately trained staff, make sure that they are appropriately gowned for the rooms that they're entering into. So if you're going into grade B and above, you obviously need to be in sterile gowning. Everything below that, you potentially need to risk assess what you need to be wearing. But the annex now does dictate the minimum gowning requirements for all grades. You need to ensure that using validated cleaning and disinfection program in place, including the use of suitable cleaning agents for the rooms that you're working in. You need environmental monitoring and trend analysis in place. So touching on what Joan's just discussed, trend analysis for the actual operation of the room, but also for your particle counts and your microbials. And you need to make sure that your SOPs are being followed and that you have compliant equipment and furniture in the facility itself. So when you're looking at the training of your staff, do you have in-house expertise to train these staff, or do you need to go to somewhere external for this? For gowning consumables and qualification of the gowning, do your gowning materials meet the regulatory requirements? For cleaning agents and validation, are they suitable and validated? Environmental monitoring, can you carry out environmental monitoring in-house, or again, do you need to go to a third party? For SOPs, do you have the capability of writing these? Do you have the experience in the facility of having your in-house QA team and the production team who are able to write procedures for working in the clean rooms? And for furniture and equipment, is your equipment and furniture fit for use? So is it non-shedding? Is it made of materials that are suitable for use with your cleaning agents?
So when regulations change, does your facility meet the new requirements? A gap analysis can be a really useful tool. We've had people approach us this year talking about the new annex and saying, I'm not really sure my clean room meets these requirements. Could you arrange for us to have an audit so we can have a look at this? And basically, if you do an internal audit, the people who are doing the internal audit have got a deep understanding how the facility is used and how processes are carried out. Or you might want to consider using an external audit service with a fresh perspective and an independent viewpoint, and potentially a broader knowledge of the regulatory requirements. Personally, I would say you need a combination of both. You need your quality department internally who will scrutinise the regulatory changes, and then you might want to consider an external audit to look at it from a brand new viewpoint. So we use the phrase, I'm talking now about regulatory inspections, and we use the phrase inspection ready. We always say you should be ready for an inspection at any time. But if you've got a brand new clean room, how do you know what's going to happen at that inspection? You might talk to colleagues in other companies and they might say, oh, the MHRA inspector came and he asked me for this and he asked me for that. And you think, oh, I'm going to write these things down. And then another inspector comes along to your inspection. He might ask you for something else. So are you ready for your inspection? What do you need to prepare for it? Again, we go back to possibly a gap analysis audit or a mock inspection. Some companies offer a mock inspection service. You might have moved from being regulated under EU GMP to being regulated under the FDA and having no idea what the FDA are going to ask for when they come compared to an MHRA inspector. Is your clean room validation package ready and suitable to share with the inspector at your first inspection? I've always been asked for my validation package. I can't see an inspector wouldn't ask for it. We want to see your URS, and we want to see compliance with that URS when that clean room was validated. And can you get some support from your clean room construction company on the day of your inspection? I've scrambled for documents at an MHRA inspection. I'm sure many of us have. And if you cannot find a drawing or you cannot find a document, if your clean room construction company can give you support on that day and actually help you find that document you need. To give an example, we installed a clean room and we actually submitted the design to the MHRA, and the MHRA said they were perfectly happy with it. They really liked the design, and the company went ahead and constructed the clean room, did the full validation package. They were happy with it. And on the day, the MHRA inspector arrived, and he had a different idea to his colleague. And one of the rooms that we'd classified as grade D, he said, no, that's not satisfactory. I want it as grade C. So we were available on the day. We spoke to the customer. We did them a quick layout, told them what we'd need to change to get that room up to grade C. We got them a quick drawing. It was a sketch. It wasn't a full drawing. But we showed by putting an extra filter in that room and by changing the pressure differentials on the room that we could create that. And the inspector was happy with it. So if you can get any support from a clean room construction company for that type of thing, it can be very useful for you.
So we're now going to look at regulatory updates. So as we're all aware, Annex 1's due for implementation in the next 3 months. So are you aware of all updates to regulatory requirements that impact your facility and who's actually in charge of being responsible for keeping up to date with these? Is your clean room construction company and or your requalification provider aware of these updates and the implications as well? So you want to make sure that anyone that you're using to build your clean room is aware of any changes and what that means for them when they go forward with building your room. So again, yeah, EU GMP Annex 1, we're all very aware of it now, and yeah, 3 months to the date. So in summary, compliance in a clean room is required throughout the full life cycle. So we've looked at pre-project all the way through to design, installation, your operation and performance, and servicing requalification. And then when you're actually still using the room, you need to ensure that it still stays compliant. So thank you for your time today, and do we have any questions?
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Joan. Can I take any questions from the floor? I'll run around with a microphone, as long as you're close. You've given a very comprehensive presentation.
That's a good sign.
Can I ask one question? You were very pharma, GMP, Annex 1 orientated there when you talk about regulatory compliance. Do you see other industries like aerospace or automotive or tech, whilst they're not regulated by MHRA, of course, they still have regulation. Do you see a growing demand or a change of demand, or do you still employ the same philosophy to compliance for those other industries?
We have some companies who touch on pharma. They're not pharma themselves, but they're producing products for the pharma industry. And we're finding more and more that the companies who are auditing them are still expecting them to comply with GMP. But we're also seeing other regulatory requirements. So we've been working recently on a clean room that has some forensic requirements. So they're talking about cross-contamination of DNA. So we are seeing it more and more different requirements coming in. We will offer any company who wants to say, we're not GMP, we're not complying with a particular regulation, but we'd still like to see DQ, IQ, OQ, PQ. So we do that as an enhanced validation service for ISO clean rooms. If anybody wants that service, we're more than happy to comply with it. But I think you're right, Tim. I think more and more regulations are coming into play, and people are asking for considerations for different environments. The other one we're seeing, obviously, more often is other international regulatory bodies. So we've worked, obviously, inside the EU. We've worked with the FDA, but we're getting requirements from other countries now. So there's clean rooms coming in places like Thailand, Malaysia we talked about before, and if they are GMP, or they have a regulatory compliance, we'd be expected to know the international regulatory requirements for that particular country.
Yeah, thank you, Joan. All right, no last minute questions? Okay, well, thank you very much again, you two.